rise. Please be seated.
Okay, you can bring the jury.
All jurors present in order.
What?
Officer Slager, Mr. Slager, I hand you what's previously been marked as State's Exhibit number 258 for identification, I believe. And ask if you recognize that.
Yes, I do.
And what is that?
It's the North Charleston use of force policy.
And is that the North Charleston Police Department use of force policy that was in effect at the time that you were a policeman on April 4th of 2015?
Yes, it was.
And if you would, could you read to the jury Section 2 as to what the policy of the North Charleston Police Department is regarding the use of force?
The North Charleston Police Department recognizes and respects the value of human life is immeasurable. Police officers, because of their sworn responsibility to protect life and property, may be required to utilize deadly force or less than deadly force to carry out duty. However, the protection of life must always take priority over the apprehension of criminals or the protection of property. An officer of the North Charleston Police Department, while she is engaged in a lawful execution of her legal duties of a law enforcement officer, will use only the force which is reasonably and necessary to effect his or her objectives. The officer's responsibility for protecting life must and does include his or her own.
Okay. And regarding the use of deadly force, flipping to page 4 of that document, I believe, under subsection B, what are the parameters for the use of deadly force under section 1?
It's B1.
B1, yes, sir. B1A and B.
An officer may use deadly force only when the officer reasonably believes that the action is in defense of human life, including the officer's own, or the defense of any person in immediate danger of serious physical injury. And B is to prevent the escape of a fleeing felon whom the officer can clearly establish facts that indicated that the felon, if allowed to flee, will pose an immediate threat to human life.
And finally, moving on to I believe page 11, section M. What does it say?
You said section M?
Yes, sir.
In all cases of use of force, whether deadly or non-deadly force, medical treatment consistent with any injury sustained by an individual will be immediately provided in the form of immediate minor first aid or a request for EMS.
Now, as part of your training as a police officer, you underwent training at the academy
Yes?
as well, correct? South Carolina Criminal Justice Academy. And what do they teach you in terms of the use of deadly force, and I believe it's been referred to as ability, opportunity, gender? Did you learn that as well?
Yes.
And could you please explain to the jury what that means?
Sure. Ability is the ability for somebody to use it. Opportunity is the opportunity to do it. And jeopardy is if the person has a weapon and they're going to do it.
Okay, so the person has to have the ability to cause death or serious bodily injury, correct?
Correct.
The opportunity to do that, correct?
Correct.
And the officer or the public actually has to be in jeopardy.
Correct.
Now, with regard to this particular morning, April 4th, 2015, that was a Saturday morning, is that correct?
Yes.
And how long had you been working days?
Maybe 6, 7 months.
Okay. And had you been in Charleston Farms that whole time?
I was assigned to Charleston Farms, correct, the whole time.
Okay. And is Saturday morning, that time Saturday morning, typically a high crime time?
Crime happens anytime during the day.
I
So
understand.
I can't answer that question.
Okay. So it wasn't your experience as a police officer that when you were on nights that it was frequently more busy than it was during the daytime?
Well, I also worked a different area. I didn't work Charleston Farms at night.
Okay. Fair enough. And when you're on duty, you monitor the radio, correct?
Correct.
And what is when somebody like Officer Habersham or Officer Banez has to go to City Hall for whatever, do they generally radio that in?
Sometimes with a warrant, the warrants division will call the officer on the telephone. So he might not have come over the radio. I don't remember.
Okay. But you knew what the staffing issues were that day, correct?
I don't recall now.
So you don't recall there was you and Habersham and Banez and Heather Lawrence being on duty that day?
I don't recall.
And you would agree that it was your decision to make the traffic stop, is that correct?
That's correct.
And you didn't know that Officer Banez and Officer Habersham were at City Hall?
No, I didn't know where they were.
And you were aware that it took Officer Habersham 2.5 minutes to get to your location, correct?
I didn't know that now. I mean, I'm sorry, I didn't know that then. I know that now.
You learned that now. And is that an unreasonable amount of time?
No.
He got there pretty quick, actually, didn't he? Coming from City Hall.
Yeah, he would have been there quicker if he was in Charles Farms with me.
And after you stopped the car, you went up to the car and got the driver's license, correct?
Correct.
Did you ever check the driver's license?
I don't recall. I might have glanced at it.
I mean, wouldn't that be the first thing you do is to check the driver's license and see if the guy you're looking at is the same face you're looking at on the driver's license?
Correct, but sometimes the driver's license picture is taken years before.
That's true. And you had the suspect's car there, correct?
He was parked in the parking lot.
Okay. And there was a passenger in the car.
Correct.
And if I understand this correctly, you said that when Mr. Scott ultimately ran, you got out and locked your car?
Correct.
Did you have to do that with a key?
I have a key fob.
Okay, so it was a key fob. And you determined to chase them,
Correct.
and that was within policy, correct?
We don't have a foot chase policy.
Well, I'm telling you, you have a policy regarding taking someone into custody, right?
Correct.
So, I mean, the ultimate decision as to whether or not you're going to try to put someone in custody is, once again, your decision to make.
Correct.
And he ran,
He did.
and he didn't threaten you before he ran.
No.
And Mr. Pierre Fulton didn't threaten you before Mr. Scott ran, correct?
I didn't talk to the passenger.
And neither one of them were belligerent to you at the car, correct?
No.
And Mr. Scott did give you this story about him being in the process of buying the car, correct?
Yeah, he stated that he owned the car, and then he stated he did not own the car, and then he stated he was in the process of buying it.
Said he was getting the car from a neighbor, correct?
I don't recall that.
And that they were supposed to go to DMV Monday and consummate.
That's correct, yes.
Okay, that's what he told you.
He told me about the DMV on Monday, yes.
And he ran, there's no question about it.
Yes.
And it is true that someone would not normally run for an equipment violation.
Not in my experience, no.
Okay? You've had people run for other traffic kind of stuff, but not for like an equipment violation.
Correct, the sole purpose, correct.
And in your experience as a police officer, is having a warrant a good reason that someone generally runs from you?
That's one of the reasons.
Okay. It certainly is one of the reasons, because if somebody's got a warrant and they know they got a warrant and they know they're going to jail, it's normal for them to run, correct?
You could say that, yes.
And did you have any reason at the time to believe that Mr. Scott had done anything to violate the law at the time that he ran, other than the insurance situation and the ownership situation?
When you conduct a traffic stop, the subject is detained, so he was fleeing after being detained, and then when he got out of the car the first time, when I instructed him back in the vehicle, he was not free to leave. So that's another reason.
I understand that, and so he was not free to leave.
Correct.
But he ran,
He did.
and you determined to chase him,
Yes,
and you did chase him,
I did.
and some 10 to 15 seconds later, you decided you were going to use the taser,
I don't recall the time at the time.
and you told him that you were going to use the taser,
I did.
and you took the taser, your taser out, and yelled taser, taser, taser.
I don't recall if I yelled it first, then took it out, or I took it out and yelled it.
And at that time, had Mr. Scott done anything to escalate the situation other than running?
No, no,
And at that time, had Mr. Scott done anything to threaten you other than just trying to get away?
no, not at that time.
Now, let's talk a little bit about the video. And I believe you've already conceded that you are the officer on that video, correct?
That's correct.
And I believe you have also conceded that Mr. Scott, the man with the green shirt on the video, was the man you killed.
That's correct.
Would you concede from watching the video that Mr. Scott did not have your taser at the time that you killed him?
No.
You don't concede that?
At the time I was there, I did not know.
I'm saying from watching the video, sir, do you concede that at the time you shot Mr. Scott and he did not have your taser?
Yes, after learning information now, I do.
Okay. Well, let's look at it. I'd like to direct your attention to State's Exhibit number 237. And I'd like to ask you some questions regarding this video, if I could. Let me go back to the beginning of this. I want to turn it up a little bit. Did you hear the clicking noise at the beginning of that?
I did.
Okay. And that was your taser, correct?
I assume so.
And would you agree that that was the last activation of your taser?
I don't have the taser log. I don't know.
You don't hear it on here after that incident, do you?
I don't.
Okay, this is the first time y'all come into view on this, other than the struggle on the ground. This is the first time that y'all come into view on this video, is that correct? That's at 13 seconds.
I think a frame before, maybe.
Pardon me?
I think a frame, 2 frames back, you can see.
Well, yes, there are frames back, but would you agree that this is the first time that you can see what's happening?
No, I think you can see
Okay,
a frame
well, let me go
before.
back a frame.
I can see,
Okay, or another frame. Or
yeah.
another frame. Or another frame. Or another frame. Or another frame. Would you agree that this is the first time that you can see basically what's happening?
I think the frame before you can, sir.
Okay? And you are grabbing Mr. Scott's right hand with your left hand, correct?
Correct.
And Mr. Scott's right hand appears to be empty.
It appears to be.
Okay? And we know that Mr. Scott had a phone in his left hand, correct?
Correct.
And would you agree that he is not holding a taser in that screenshot?
At the time, no, but after looking at this video, yes.
Okay? And if you look down between your legs, there appears to be a dark object there. Do you know what that is?
That could be my shoe.
Could be. Could be the taser too, good.
It could be, yes.
Okay? And your right leg goes backwards, correct?
It might go to the side. I
It might
don't,
go to the side, but it might go backwards too, correct?
it could, but I don't recall.
Okay. So let's see where it ends up. Okay, now would you agree your right leg's behind you?
It could, with the angle of the camera, it could be to the side.
Okay. And would you, what is that thing rolling along the ground behind you?
That would be the taser.
Okay. And what is Mr. Scott doing now?
He's moving away.
So, would you agree that at this time, he is not armed and he is running away from you?
Like I stated, at the time, on April 4th, I would say no, but after watching the video, yes.
Okay? So would you agree that Mr. Scott was roughly in that position when he fired the first shot?
When I fired the first shot,
Yes.
like I stated, at the time, I would say no. After watching the video, yes.
You appear to be looking out down at the ground behind you there. Could you tell us what you're looking at?
Yes, after firearms qualification, we're trained to scan threats to look to the left and to the right.
Are you trained to scan them on the ground?
I don't think I was just looking to the left and right. I don't recall where I was looking, if I was looking on the ground or if I was looking, my head might be down, but my eyes might be looking this way.
Do you agree that you appear to be looking down? You appear to be looking down.
The video showed, yeah, it appears to be, but I don't think that's true.
Okay. Now, I believe at this time you said that you did not know if Mr. Scott was armed or not,
Correct.
correct? Aren't you generally trained if you're approaching someone that you think may be armed to have your weapon out? And on him in case he is in fact alive, and he turns around and tries to shoot you?
That's correct, yes. But in this situation, with everything leading up to the shooting, I was tired. I ran to 200 yards. I was on a fight on the ground. Mr. Scott was coming after me with the taser twice. My mind was like spaghetti.
You were in the fight still?
I was still in the fight, yes.
Okay. Because you've been provoked.
I'm sorry?
Because you've been provoked, right?
No,
Oh, you haven't been provoked?
no.
Okay. So you don't consider Mr. Scott coming at you with the taser as being provoked?
Provoked to defend myself with self-defense, yes.
Okay. Or provoked, period?
No, I was doing my job.
Okay.
Oh shit. Oh shit.
Who are you yelling at there?
We're trained in training and also active shooter training to make loud verbal commands for a subject to put their hands behind their back.
You sound like you could be angry there, but you're not angry, right?
No, I was giving loud verbal commands like I'm trained to do.
Okay. To the corpse.
I'm sorry?
To the corpse.
At that time, I didn't know if Mr. Scott was hit. I didn't know if Mr. Scott had passed.
Shit.
And you handcuffed him, right?
I did.
And that's what you're trained to do?
Yes, department policy states you handcuff a person.
Didn't search him for weapons?
If I recall, I think when I was handcuffing him, I was looking at his waistband in the back.
Didn't roll him over to see if he was on the level?
I did not.
Didn't look for your taser?
After I handcuffed him, I looked for my taser.
And just to be clear, that is your taser that you picked up,
That's correct.
okay? And that is the same taser that we just saw that was 8 feet behind you when the shooting started.
At the time of the shooting, I didn't know the taser was behind me.
Talking about what the video shows, is that the same taser that was 8 feet behind you at the time the shooting started?
That's correct.
Okay? And that, who is that arriving?
That's Officer Habersham arriving, calling for his kit to do medical aid to Mr. Scott.
Oh shit.
Okay, we're going back this up, because that's kind of hard to miss, isn't it, sir?
I'm sorry?
It's kind of hard to miss, isn't it?
Miss Habersham rendering aid?
No, miss what you did with that taser. It's kind of easy to miss, isn't it?
Fuck.
This is the part I'm talking about, it's pretty easy to miss.
Okay.
And what is that you're dropping out of your right hand?
Appears to be the taser.
Okay?
Fucking abuse. Fucking abuse, man.
Would you agree that by this time, Mr. Santana and moved around and was in clear view of you?
Appears to be.
And clearly taping you at this point?
Appears to be, yes.
And that's when you decided to pick up the taser?
That's when I picked up the taser, yes.
Now, and would you agree that you, nowhere on that videotape did you ever administer any first aid to Mr. Scott, other than to walk up to him at one point and check his pulse?
I did not. When I came back, Officer Habersham was administering first aid. And at that time, you know, I had been in that whole fight, the whole situation, and I don't remember what happened after that. I don't remember dropping the taser. I don't remember anything.
Well, you have a pretty clear recollection of what went on here. It seems like you just remembering not remembering the things that are bad for you.
Some things I don't remember. I don't remember Walter Scott on top of me. I don't remember Walter Scott's arm around my neck. Certain things, I don't remember the ground fight.
Well, we're going to go into that in some deep depth. So let's start talking about that. After this incident, you told Lieutenant Bowman what happened, correct?
Yes, he asked me what happened, and I told him the best of my knowledge and best of my memory what happened.
Okay. And you told him pretty much what you testified to today, except you told him that you drive-stunned him twice.
I don't have the statement. I need to look at that.
Okay. I believe you said pretty much the same thing, that you stopped him, he ran, you chased him, You tased him once, didn't work, tased him again, he locked up, he went on the ground, continued to struggle, it was a struggle with you, and you drive stunned him once in the side and once in the back.
Like I said, I need to look at that statement. I don't.
And would you agree that the taser was activated 6 different times on that occasion?
Yes, it was.
And referring to State's Exhibit 14, have you seen that before?
Yes, I have.
Okay. And that is basically the activation times for the taser. Is that correct?
Yes, it is.
And there's a short 2-second one at the beginning of the day. Was that a spark test?
Yes, it was.
Okay, and what is a spark test again?
When we come on shift in the morning, we take the cartridge out, we turn it on, just to make sure the unit's working.
Okay, and you did that morning, correct?
Yes, I did.
And then it shows a 5-second burst from 9:36:26 to 9:36:31. That would be the one that had no effect on Mr. Scott?
Yes, I think so.
Okay. And then it shows a second, 8 seconds later, it shows a second deployment that went from 9:36:39 to 9:36:44, another 5-second burst, correct?
Correct.
Followed 1 second later by a second 5-second burst, correct?
Correct.
Okay. And that is the taser deployment that brought Mr. Scott down, correct?
Yeah, to my knowledge, at the time, yes, but now after looking at the evidence, I don't think it did.
I believe what you said to the officers on the scene and Lieutenants Gint and Angela Peterson was that he locked up and went down.
I said that, yes.
Okay, and what did you mean by locked up?
He became stiff and fell down.
Which is what happens when someone is tased and MI is achieved, correct?
Correct.
Okay, and then it shows a 6-second gap.
Yes.
And then another taser deployment, correct?
Correct.
And then there's a 24-second gap, and then another taser deployment, correct?
Correct.
And then there is a 3-second gap and a final taser deployment, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And which I believe is the last one we hear on that video. Correct?
Appears to be yes.
And when you talk to Lieutenants Gint and Peterson on April the 7th, would you agree that you told them that you never smelled any marijuana or suspected that Mr. Scott had any guns or suspected that Mr. Scott had any illegal drugs or anything of that nature?
At the time, yes.
Okay. And I believe you acknowledge that you didn't have an opportunity to run his license and his criminal history, correct?
Correct.
So you didn't know that Mr. Scott had a child support warrant, correct?
No, I also didn't know he was armed and dangerous and violent tendencies.
Oh, he was, huh?
That's what.
How was he armed and dangerous?
That's something I've learned later.
Okay, and for what?
I'm sorry.
For what?
I
Because he had a simple assault conviction 25 years before, correct?
haven't looked at his rap sheet.
Is that what you're talking about when you said you wouldn't get out of the car because he had a simple assault conviction 25 years before?
No, sir. What happens is when you run the computer program, the NCIC, it comes back, an alert will come back,
Right,
and it will say armed and dangerous violent tendencies.
right.
So
And-
at that point, I don't get his rap sheet.
You didn't
Well,
know
let us
that.
answer the question.
I'm letting him answer the question. The fact of the matter is, he already testified that he had to run his criminal history.
This month, the objection is sustained.
Okay.
Allow the witness to answer your questions.
Had you run his criminal history?
I did not.
Okay. And you have seen his criminal history since then, have you?
I've seen it a couple months ago, yes.
Okay. And he doesn't have a history for being armed and dangerous, does he?
I don't know.
You've seen the rap sheet.
I have.
The only thing that he had on his rap sheet in the last 25 years was for child support.
Something,
That's right.
if I remember correctly, it had something about a plungent object. I don't know.
In 1989, correct?
If I need to see that to confirm.
And so when you blurt out that he was armed and dangerous, that's why he was armed and dangerous, is that correct?
I don't know I haven't read the report. I need to recall that rap sheet to see.
But you have seen the rap sheet?
A couple months ago, yes, sir.
Okay. And you knew that he had a phone in his hand while you were chasing?
Correct.
You saw the phone in his hand?
Correct.
You heard people talking to him through the phone in his hand?
Correct, because it was on speakerphone.
Right. And telling him to do what you said, correct?
Correct.
During the chase, never threatened you,
I'm sorry.
correct?
He-
During the chase and Tase 1 and Tase 2, never turned around and confronted you?
Yes, he did.
During the chase and before Taser 1 and Taser 2, are you changing your story now? Now you're saying that he did turn around and confront you before you gave him 10 seconds worth of 50,000 votes and he locked up on the ground?
I'm sorry, I thought you stated the whole incident. I didn't know you were talking about between Taser 1 and Taser 2. So between Taser 1 and Taser 2, he was running away.
Okay. And did we get to him being on the ground?
Correct.
You only had 2 cartridges with you that day, correct?
Yes, I did.
And you had used both of those cartridges, correct?
Correct.
And you had ejected both of those cartridges from your taser
Correct.
before Mr. Scott gained possession of it.
Correct.
So at that point, that taser was a threat in drive-stun mode only, correct?
To me, yes.
Now, you said that Mr. Scott jerked the taser out of your hand
Yes.
and turned it towards you, correct?
Correct.
Was that when you were on the ground, or was that after y'all had stood up?
We were on the ground.
Okay. And then y'all stood up?
Yeah, because I was trying to get away from him when he was coming after me with the taser,
Okay.
coming to me with the taser.
Kind of like he was trying to get away from you earlier, correct?
No, he was coming towards me. If he was trying to get away, he would have gone the other way. So he was coming towards me with the taser.
Now, I'm talking about from advance all the way to the time you tased him twice, okay? He had done nothing, would you agree that he had done nothing at that point other than try to get away from you?
Correct, he was fleeing.
Okay. And would you agree that after you tased him and he locked up, you drive-stunned him once, at least once, and perhaps twice, based upon your previous statements?
Once, perhaps twice.
And have you ever been tased?
Yes, I have.
And does that feel good?
No, it does not.
Have you been carb tased and drive stunned, or both?
Yep, both.
Okay. And when you were getting tased with a drive stun, what is your natural reaction?
To get away.
To make it stop, right?
Correct.
To get away. And that's what Mr. Scott was doing, wasn't
He wasn't complying the whole scenario.
he? He was trying to get away.
He would never. He never stopped after I gave him multiple commands to stop, even before the tasing.
Now, and you told Lieutenant Gant and Agent Peterson that he was on his feet, coming at you with the taser extended.
Correct.
And would you agree that you were focused on that taser?
I was focused on him and the taser, and I can see the taser coming at me when we were on the ground.
Okay. And I wasn't clear from your direct testimony. Are you saying that he tased you or didn't tase you or what? I don't.
That whole situation, I don't remember everything that happened. Some things I remember and some things I don't.
You would agree that you never told anybody that he had tased you?
That's correct.
Okay.
But I did tell Sergeant Webb and Chief Triggers what he did with the taser, where he turned it around and was coming at me with it. I told them on the scene.
I think you told everybody that he had turned it around
Correct.
and was coming at you toward it. But you never told anybody that he tased you with it, correct?
Well, I might have not remembered. In the fight, some things I don't remember.
And do you recall telling them, again, I'm back at Gant and Peterson, that you located the taser in between where you shot and where Mr. Scott came to rest on the ground?
I did. You know, when I told him that 3 days later, I wasn't out there measuring distances. I wasn't out there measuring where the shell casings were. I wasn't measuring where the taser was. So distance, to best of my knowledge, that's what I remember. So I can't give an exact distance of where it was. But from what I thought and what I remember, that's what I told Sled.
Okay. But you have to acknowledge that Mr. Scott's hat was right there, right where you were shooting, and his body was 55 feet away. And it wasn't found in between those two landmarks, was it?
Yeah, no, it wasn't.
And you also told him that you picked up the taser and put it in your holster
Correct.
because you were concerned that somebody may be coming to help Mr. Scott.
Correct.
And that was true, correct?
What was true?
That you eventually put it in your holster because you thought somebody was coming, but you neglected the part about dropping it by Mr. Scott's body, and then, correct? Would you agree with that?
Yeah, at that time, I don't remember that happening. I grabbed the taser off the ground, like you stated, because of somebody else coming, where the passenger was, who Mr. Scott was talking to on the phone. And you don't leave a weapon in the middle of the field like that. So I picked it up, and I don't know why I dropped it on the ground, but I did pick it up seconds later. Was it because I was policing my gear? I can't even answer to that.
Yeah, I had no problem with you consolidating your gear, sir, if you pick it up and put it in your holster. That's how you consolidate. Correct?
We also consolidate on the scene, too.
What?
Consolidate on the scene.
Sir, if you're going to secure your taser, you pick it up from the ground and you put it
In my holster.
Do you agree that when you talked to Yent and Peterson, that you never told them that you thought Mr. Scott had a weapon?
Can you rephrase that question?
Do you agree that you never told Agent Skip and Peterson that you thought Mr. Scott had a weapon? Other than your taser, I know about your taser.
Yeah, he
but
had
I
my
mean his
taser,
own
yes.
weapon, correct?
Yes. I think I did state to them that I didn't know if he had anything else on him.
And that you never saw him, throwing down drugs or anything like that Mr. Savage has intimated 15 or 20 times during this trial?
Well, when we ran around the corner with the fence and the foliage on the fence, I lost sight of Mr. Scott. And with that arm movement, I don't know what he was doing. Was he trying to swap the
His arm
taser?
movement that you described as doing this,
Correct.
okay? Have to take that many times to throw something to the ground beside him.
I don't know, sir.
The fact of the matter is, you're starting to make up things as we go along, aren't you?
No, I'm not.
Never said that a year and a half ago.
I need to look at the report. I'm pretty sure I told Angela Peterson that.
Never said anything about you were afraid that he was going to run and hide behind a tree and shoot you with a gun.
I need to look at that report.
Never said anything about him punching you.
No, like I said, we were rolling around on the ground, and he was on top of me, and
Never said anything about that, did you? That him being on top of it?
no, because I don't remember that.
Okay. Never said anything about him kicking you
No, like
or scratching you, correct?
the kicking part, like I said, we were in a fight on the ground. I don't remember everything that happened.
Okay. Or biting you,
I don't think he bit me.
or cursing you.
I don't recall what some of the things Mr. Scott said and what I said. I don't recall some of them.
Or tasing you.
No, I stated on the scene that he grabbed my taser, and I showed multiple officers what he did, and it was coming after me.
Okay.
So I don't, recall what actually
I
happened.
understand, and you testified to that. I'm saying what you didn't tell them, okay? And would you agree that you didn't tell them this stuff?
That's correct, and the reason I probably didn't say anything is because I don't remember it happening.
Or that he had gotten on top of you,
That's correct. I never told anyone that because I don't remember.
or that he'd had you in a headlock, never said anything about that,
No, I don't remember.
or that he'd had you in a chokehold,
I don't remember that, sir.
or that he had ever, at any point during this Donnybrook, had any kind of tactical advantage over you at all.
Like I stated, we were rolling around on the ground, fighting, and I don't remember everything that happened.
You described it as him as wiggling and trying to get away.
Correct, he was.
Did Agent Peterson go over her notes with you?
She read them back to me.
And when she read them back to you, did you agree that that is what happened?
I know Mr. Ayler said that we had to end the meeting, so we left.
Okay.
So I don't recall.
So you don't recall whether or not she went over her notes with you line by line for some 45 minutes?
I don't recall.
Okay. And do you recall telling her that that was a true and accurate account of what had happened to you then?
I don't recall that.
So it's your testimony today that you believe Mr. Scott had the taser as he ran away, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
And would you agree that that taser, in its current state at that time, was not a threat to you from a distance?
No.
Okay. And could you explain to the jury how that taser was a threat to you at a distance?
At that time, when Mr. Scott was coming after me with the taser, I drew my weapon and fired. I was focused on the front sight, and that's all I know. I know, he tried to tase me with it when we were on the ground. I'm backing away, getting away, and he's still coming after me with this taser. And at that point, I made a decision to use lethal force, because Mr. Scott never stopped. He was always dangerous.
18 feet away from you, he was still dangerous with that taser, even if he died.
Well, at that point, when I started shooting, I didn't know what was going on with distance. I didn't know what was going on with all that. So I fired my firearm until the threat was stopped.
So you can't change your mind.
I'm sorry?
You can't change your mind.
I made that decision, I did it.
And you wouldn't acknowledge that he was 18 feet away from you when you fired the first shot.
At that time, on April 4th, 2015, I can't tell you that. But now, 18 months later, sitting in the courtroom and hearing everybody's testimony, he was 17, 18 feet away.
18 feet when the first shot was fired, some 40 feet away when the last shot was fired. And there was a nice long pause between 7 and 8, was there not?
Watching the video, there was.
Would you agree that even if Mr. Scott had that taser, it could not have been used against you at the distance depicted on that video?
At that time, I didn't have that information, so I can't answer that question.
That wasn't my question, sir. I wasn't asking what was in your mind at that time. You've seen the video.
I have.
And you've heard that he was 18 feet away. Would you agree that he was not a threat to you with that taser, without a cartridge, from that distance?
No.
Okay. So you're going to stick to that?
Yes, and the reason is, from 18 feet, he could have turned around and attacked me again. And he would have been able to tase me.
Come on down. Okay. In your training exercise that Mr. Savage went through, y'all are about this far apart. Okay, I'll give you that. That far apart. Okay? And the test was, could you shoot him before he tased you? Okay? Both of you have weapons in your hand at the time, or did you have to draw? Okay, so you have to draw from the holster. This guy's got the weapon in his hand. Okay? So, yes, he has to make one step to get to you, correct? Would you agree? Pull it tight, that this is a different perspective.
It is good perspective, yes, nowadays.
And could you tell me, assuming I have the taser in my right hand or left hand, and I'm in this position, 18 feet away from you, could you tell the jury how you were correct?
At the time, that decision was made when Mr. Scott was 27 inches. Toe to toe, feet at the waist, right hand extended.
Yes, but you didn't shoot it, did you?
I pulled my issue block out and shot him.
As he was in a dead room. Correct?
I did it as fast as I could.
You may resume your seat. Thank you, sir. And regarding the radio transmission, Mr. May, 3 dispatch, shots fired, suspect down, he grabbed the taser. That's what you said, right?
That's correct.
Would you agree that you said he grabbed my taser? You never said he took my taser.
To me, that's the same thing. If you grab something, if you grab an object, same thing as took.
But it could also mean something else, couldn't it?
Not,
That he grabbed hold of the taser, but didn't take it from him.
not me.
Okay. Because it could also mean that as he was getting the heck drive stunned out of him, he grabbed your taser to try to get it away from him.
Not to me, no.
Okay. And we've been through, Mr. Savage went through your use of force incidents. And we're not going to plow through that again in depth, but you would agree that you've had 18 use of force incidents in just over 4 years.
That's, I have to look at do you have the use of force paper I can confirm with?
Pardon me?
I need to look at the,
Do you still have your notes with you?
yeah, I do right here.
Okay.
That seems about right.
Okay. And 14 of those involved taser use, correct?
One was just presenting the taser and not using it. The other one was the other officer used a taser. And I think there's a fourth one of the other officer using the taser, and I did not use the taser.
Okay.
So,
And it's true basically that these things are investigated by your sergeant, correct?
yeah, from what I know is it goes from my sergeant to lieutenant, then up the chain of command all the way to internal affairs.
Right. And it's starting, your sergeant writes it up, and then it's rubber stamped on up the chain of command to the chief of police, pretty much.
I don't know what the lieutenant or above does with these reports. All I know is when there's a use of force, the sergeant interviews all officers on scene, talks to the subject, looks at video, and does the report.
If the subject is available and if the video is available, correct?
I'm pretty sure the subject is available.
And wouldn't it be safe to say that sometimes the suspect's version of what happens differs from the police officer's version of what happens?
It could be, yes.
And routinely, those kind of uses of force are approved.
I don't know. I don't have any insight of what the lieutenant and above think about use of force.
Because basically, the fox is guarding the hen house.
I don't know anything about that.
And just for an instance, you mentioned one where you went to the house looking for the burglary suspect,
Correct.
and you knocked on the door, and he opened the door,
Correct.
and he said he wasn't who you were looking for, and he didn't want to talk to you, and shut the door, and you forced your way in and tased him.
Didn't happen like that.
Okay? And he wasn't the suspect you were looking for, was he?
No, it wasn't.
Now, he might have a different view of whether or not your use of the taser was okay in that case, would he?
Everybody has their own view, yes.
Okay? And the other one you talked about the guy that had been stopped in a Mercedes by another officer, and for DUS, and there were 4 officers there. You and another officer dragged him out of the car. After you dragged him out of the car, a 3rd officer arrived, and that guy was being held down on the asphalt with 1 cop on each side of him holding his arms when you said, "Back up, I'm going to tase him," and tased him in the back.
I did.
So, and that was approved by the North Charleston Police Department, correct?
I guess it was.
So, and I'm not saying that there's anything wrong about that, but the use of your taser can also say something about your temperament, can't it?
No, because the ones we went over today, the subject was physically assaulting a victim or someone else.
Sometimes
this-
they were, sometimes they weren't.
Correct. And the
Sometimes they were
safest,
just running.
and the safest is a taser. So I don't want to get into a fight with a person when I can use a taser. It's going to cause less harm to that person than me than an actual fist fight.
Or you could, in this case, and I know Lieutenant Humphreys wouldn't agree to it, but you could have just taken his license, his car, and if you wanted to arrest him for anything, you could have gotten a warrant and arrested him.
At that time, I didn't have any charges on him except for he was not free to leave.
Well, you thought it was serious enough that you chased him and tased him?
That's what police officers do.
Okay.
That's our job. We can't just ignore crime.
Well, yeah, I guess that's true, except you didn't really have any information that he committed a crime other than traffic stuff.
Like I stated, he was detained on the traffic stop. When he got out of the vehicle, he was instructed to sit back in the car, and he was not free to leave.
And are you trained to de-escalate situations?
I haven't had any de-escalation training, no.
Okay. Do you think that is a good idea for officers sometimes to de-escalate?
I think the training is useful, yes, but like I stated, I haven't had any training.
In hindsight, do you think you made good decisions that day, even though it was within policy?
With all the facts and information I had at that time, yes. But then going back 18 months later and looking at everything, things could have been different.
And getting back to the use of force incidents and the review, your immediate sergeant on the day of this incident was Sergeant James Gann, correct?
Yes.
And were you aware that he wrote a report clearing you on April the 6th of 2007 of any violation of policy before this video came out?
I haven't seen that report, no, I don't know.
Now, you would agree, would you not, sir, that you are human like the rest of us?
Yes.
And would you agree that you encounter times of happiness and sadness and despondency
I think
just like anybody else?
Yeah, I think everybody does.
And would you agree that just like anybody else, when you're provoked, you get angry?
Not as a police officer, no.
So you are immune from becoming angry because you are a police officer?
Now, you can't take the work home with you, and you can't do that, because every day, it happens every day, you can't let it stick to you.
I understand that, but so your testimony is that when a suspect fights with you,
Yes.
that you do not have any emotional reaction to that at all?
No, I'm not angry, I'm just doing my job.
And so never get angry, never get frustrated,
No.
never get any of that because you're immune from that when you put on the blue.
I'm not immune from it. I've learned over the years to not take it to heart.
Okay. And you're obviously an emotional guy because you were shedding tears on direct during today's testimony. Is that correct?
Correct.
You didn't shed a tear on April the 4th of 2015, did you?
Well, that's a little different situation due to the fact of everything that led up to that, the stress. My mind was in spaghetti. Different kind of incident.
Court's indulgence. Could you please answer any questions Mr. Savage may have for you?
Let me redirect. Yes, sir.
Mr. Slager, I want to be sure that the jury is clear on the distinction between knowledge today and the knowledge you had when you employed lethal force against Mr. Scott.
Okay.
I want you to look at page 8 of the 24-page record of Mr. Scott, of the information you did not have on April 4th. Did you put any information to the FBI's history of Mr. Scott?
No, I did not.
What did the FBI say on April 4th of 2015 about Mr. Scott?
Wanted person, caution, armed and dangerous, violent tendencies.
Did you have that knowledge on April 4th?
I did not.
Would you have gotten out of your patrol car if that information had come on your computer screen?
Absolutely not.
There's some question here about your knowledge of a video. Were you familiar over the years with Craig Street and the Yellow Brick Road area?
I am, yes.
Is that area under surveillance by private residences and businesses?
I'm pretty sure there's the AutoZone store at the corner. There's a couple other businesses. Then off of Yellow Brick Road, there's a apartment complex that has a really big sign that says under video surveillance or video surveillance to that effect.
It says under video surveillance?
Either that or video surveillance or cameras to that effect, yes.
On April 4th, 2015,
Yes.
on the location exactly where this incident took place?
Correct.
Since we have been talking about what you know now from the videotape and the audio tape, did you, knowledge today, continuously instruct Mr. Scott to get on the ground?
Yes.
Did you curse him?
No, I did not.
Did you use any racial epithets?
No.
Did you do anything that would indicate that you were angry at him other than for him to get on the ground?
No.
Did he yell at you? Do you know now after listening to the audio tape?
After listening to the audio, yes.
Did you learn that he said, "Fuck the police"?
Yes.
Did you react to that?
No, I did not. I don't remember.
And did you warn him before the shots were fired, just as you had warned him about the use of your taser?
Yes, you can hear it on the video.
The prosecutor asked you if you have feelings like other human beings. As part of your responsibilities of a police officer, are you trained to control your emotions?
Yes.
So the type of disparaging remarks that were made to you that day is part of the job.
That's correct. It's part of the job.
People who drink say that. People who are high say that. People who are angry say that. You hear it all day long.
Yes.
F the police.
Multiple times a day.
People wear it on their T-shirts.
Yes.
Now, Mr. Slager, look at this jury and tell them whether you were happy on April 4th or whether you've been happy any day since April 4th.
I was happy April 4th because Easter was the next day and I had off the next 3 days. Spent time with my family, and after April 4th, it's been a roller coaster. Can't sleep, nightmares. When I was in jail, the only thing they wanted to do was give me medicine to calm down. They wouldn't even talk to me. I remember the doctor who was in charge of mental health came into my cell and said, "I'll give you whatever medicine you want." So, it was a roller coaster. My family's been destroyed by this. Scott's family's been destroyed by this. It's horrible. And, I don't know. It's just
When you were in jail, who was in the cell next to you?
Dylan Roof.
I'm going to answer your questions here. Prosecutor might have.
Recross. All right, you may step down. Now, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to take 1 hour for lunch. At this time, please do not discuss the case. All right. Mr. Savage, how many more witnesses do you anticipate?
You still have an outside chance today, Your Honor, but it's early to do. But I would, if we go into tomorrow, if there's falsity in the numbers, we have 1, maybe 2 witnesses that might be of any significant length of time, and 3 or 4 that will be 10 minutes. Andy's 10 minutes.
All right. Well, we'll reconvene in 1 hour.